I don't know that I have a lot to add to that. I've not read the stimulus bill in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces and seen reports on it. But with reference to what the state can do as far as green jobs, is that yeah, my concern is whether or not the state, in terms of the amount of money that it can put into some kind of incentive for business, will actually improve the innovation as far as green technology is concerned, as opposed to just creating jobs that are called green jobs. So for instance, one of the jobs that I understand is considered a green job is a contractor to come in and change this light out from one type of fixture to another. That's considered a green job. I'm not sure that that's really changing our economy as much as what it's doing is making work for somebody.
It's supposed to be saving energy.
And those are all the projections, but that kind of goes back to what Skip talked about in terms of what we hear all these projections, but I don't know that the total cost of operating a building in government that switched over to all this green technology has actually gone down.
Well, let's use that example. Changing the lights does save energy. Well, if it saves energy, it doesn't need an incentive or a tax credit. It just makes sense.
Right.
It's only things that don't make sense that require credits. Yes, ma'am.
I actually want to go back to the card check. And
yes.
Specifically, what do you foresee happening if the bill passes? And the specific effects on our state?
The specific effects in North Carolina would be just like in New York. We would go from a relatively low level of unionization and low level of intimidation of workers to a relatively high level, doubling and tripling our rates within a couple or 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And of course that increases the transactional cost of doing business, so it's less money that the worker can actually take home in his or her pocket.
It would in essence reduce the value to North Carolina in terms of its ability to attract jobs, of being a right-to-work state, because it would increase the incidence of unionization in North Carolina. The Democrats are fond of quoting Site Selection magazine as the reason that North Carolina is in such good shape nationally in terms of our business climate. Well, the key component of the Site Selection magazine survey is right-to-work. So by passing the card check legislation, we will see an undermining of our ability to be competitive with other states on that issue. And with the high tax rates we've got and an already over-regulated business economy, it will severely damage North Carolina's competitive structure.
So on that topic, I know in Virginia they have in fact advanced, in fact I think their House of Delegates has passed a constitutional amendment on labor organizing and right to work. And I'm just curious if anyone in this state has introduced anything similar to propose a constitutional amendment, anything pending? Well, it was mentioned briefly, and I don't know how specific.
Nothing's been introduced. Senator Ruccio is, and several other members are working on some legislation. I know the Heritage Foundation has some model legislation that has been disseminated in the states, but nothing's been introduced in North Carolina, to my knowledge, as of yet.
And on the last question from NBC, I'm going to ask you to pass that paper back to her, because it tells what happened in New York State when they went this route. And essentially, the cost of local government just skyrocketed. They're the highest tax state in the nation.
There's one factoid that I think illustrates the reason the unions want this legislation, and it is this. What card check legislation does is it enables the union to bypass an election. Presently, a union can get cards signed by, I think it's 30% of the workers within a unit, and can call for an election. If you look at the quotes from many of the union chiefs over the years, they never call for an election at 30%, because they know that they've got to get over 70% of the employees to sign a card before they can hope to get 50% in a secret ballot election. And that's an indication to many people that the signing of the cards is accompanied by some influence. It may be a good influence, but most folks think it's a bad influence, and that's why the legislation ought to be defeated.
Bill, one other thing. I think everybody has read that about $4.2 million was spent last year in the North Carolina election process, both federal and state, to achieve something.
By the labor unions.
Of course, absolutely. But I guess the thing you need to look at is why would someone want to spend that kind of money and not receive a reward for it? And this check bill is the issue that they're looking to achieve. One of our recent elected officials, went to Washington, and apparently there's a number of folks from their home districts and across the state are calling them and saying, please don't participate in this card check. And they said, what's wrong with it? We're just leveling the playing field. Well, why should North Carolina level the playing field with the Northeast and the Midwest? We have an advantage. Let's take advantage of it so that our people can stay employed and working, and our quality of life will be maintained. If it was that great up there, they wouldn't all be moving here.
Spoken like an immigrant.
And in case the Senator Rucho was too oblique there, the $4.2 million was what the labor unions contributed to Democratic candidates in North Carolina this year. Or was it 4.7?
We didn't get into that. It was 4.7.
4.7 million. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we'll have copies as signed to distribute when we complete that.
I'm sorry.